So good morning, everybody. Bonjour. I'm happy to be here today. I wasn't expecting to be here this summer, but I was at the Shediac market a couple of weeks ago, and I saw somebody talk, and I thought, okay, it's time for me to do this. So I approached Nicolas and I said, can I talk? And he said yes. So for about 20 years now, my life has been a little bit about doing things that way, about following what my intuition is telling me to do, following through, even though it can be scary, and to move forward and see where that's going to take me. Where it has taken me, it's taken me on a journey of creativity, it's taken me on a journey of embodiment, and it's also taken me on a journey to work on women's issues. So I'm going to be talking about that today. Before I do, maybe I can set up a little bit about my past. I'm 45 years old, so I've been on the earth 45 years working towards this, and I grew up in Moncton, an Acadian family. So I came of age in the 80s and went to Mathieu Martin, went to University of Moncton, and when I was there, took history and sociology courses, and just a regular childhood growing up in the Maritimes. And not really 100% sure about what I wanted to do in life, even though when we're young we all have different ideas. And then there's something that happened in my early 20s that completely changed the way that I've lived my life. So before that incident happened, I was not necessarily doing what people expected me to do, but in a way I guess I was, going to school, going to university, working at McDonald's, flipping burgers, serving people, and just trying to figure things out at a very young age. When I was in junior high, so this is the start of the story about what happened in my 20s. When I was in junior high, I met a friend, and her name is Leanne, and we became friends in junior high, and we really connected in grade 10 when we would sit together in different classes, just hanging out in back of English class, passing notes, talking about boys and stuff like that. And Leanne became a really, really good friend at the end of grade 12 and during the subsequent years in my early 20s. We would hang out and party together, and we would talk and laugh and share stories about our lives to each other. We had kind of different lives. I was more like the party person, going to university, traveling. I crossed Canada and just kind of going out and having adventures. And Leanne was much more calm and focused. She was working as a secretary, and she was engaged to be married with her fiance, who was going to McGill and studying engineering. But we were best of friends. She was one of my best friends. And after my bachelor's degree at Université de Moncton, I decided that I was going to move to Montreal. Leanne was living in Montreal. She was one of my 2-3 friends that were living there at the time. So I decided that I was going to move to Montreal. And when I was there, up until then, like I said, I think I had a very normal life, normal friends. And 4 days before Christmas in 1995, Mike, her fiance, Leanne's fiance, gave me a telephone call, and he said, Barb, does Leanne have a dentist appointment this morning or something that I don't know about? And I said, no, I don't think so. Why? And he said that she didn't show up to work that day. So this was about like 10 after 9 in the morning, 5 after 9. So work called Mike to say, where's Leanne? And Mike called me to say, where's Leanne? So that's how close our friendship was. So she was missing for 4 days. And that was one of the most horrible experiences that, well, not one of, it was the most horrible experience that I had in my life, to have a friend that you don't know where she is, and you know that this person has the type of personality that she wouldn't just take off for 4 days. I had the type of personality that I would take off for 4 days and nobody knew where I was and nobody would worry about it. But she was the person that would not do that. And my intuition was very much that something was wrong. So they found Leanne's body on Christmas Eve that year. They found it in the building where she was working. So she had walked to work that day, and somebody who was working in the building had lured her, and they raped and they murdered her, and they hid her body, and they found the body on Christmas Eve. So this completely, if my life was doing this, that completely made my life go into a different direction. When something like this happens close to you, you can know that things like this happen in life, but when it happens close to you, it shifts your view of why you're here, what you want to do, why you want to do it. And it takes a long time to put that in motion and to figure it out. So if the name of my talk today is 20 years and millions of shimmies, is that with that one event that happened 20 years ago, it'll be 21 years this December, it's taken a long time for me to take that event and to create something out of it. It really helped to guide me. So I do remember that when she was missing during those 4 days, I remember at one point that I was curled up on a ball on the floor. My friends were taking care of me. They were making food and just generally taking care of me. And I remember thinking, I can't be going through this pain for nothing. Like, I want to be doing something. So once the funerals were over and all of that stuff, I tried to figure out what to do, and I couldn't think about it logically. I wasn't in a very logical place anymore. And so intuitively, I finished my semester at university, and I decided that I needed to go on a trip. I needed to travel, and because for me, traveling is a way of being very present. If you're in a space that you don't know where the washroom is or where you're going to get your glass of water, you need to be present in order to do the next thing. So I convinced 2 of my girlfriends to hitchhike with me across Canada. And it was probably one of the best decisions that I ever made. It was very scary because something very scary had just happened in my life, and I was putting myself out there in the universe or, in my life. And, but I trusted that I needed to do that. I followed my intuition to say that I needed to do something to get me out of my comfort zone. I was fearful that if I would have moved back to Moncton, that I would have cocooned and that I would have become fearful and that I wouldn't have pushed myself outside of those fears. I ended up in Nelson, British Columbia for about 1.5 years, 2 years. I lived in Vancouver and I lived in Tofino, but I ended up in Nelson. And in Nelson, when I finally kind of landed, and I started to look around and to start to, okay, like I have these feelings and I'm having these thoughts and what am I going to do? There's a few things that happened during the 2 years that I was in Nelson when I was in BC. I realized that I wasn't in a space where I can continue my studies because I needed to be in my rational mind, I guess, if I wanted to study, and that's not where I was. So I thought, learning is important to me. So what do I need to learn now? What do I need to do now in order to move forward? And I decided on a couple of things. One is, because I was in the arts at Université de Moncton, I was in history, but I was in the arts building, I saw all these artists developing their craft. And I realized that I need to find an art form that's going to help me process what I'm doing, that's going to help me move through what I'm doing. So I needed to learn something that was going to help me be creative and help me express what I was going through. I also, because I was in my mind for those 8 years at university, I decided that it was important to be in my body. I had never really done any physical activity or anything like that. I liked hiking, I liked walking in the woods, and I used my bicycle when I needed to, but other than that, I was the last person that they picked in gym class. I was not a very physical person. So I decided I needed to learn how to be in my body. So those are the classes that I decided to take. I took self-defense classes, yoga classes, I took a belly dance class, I took meditation classes to be in my body and stuff like that. I also started to get body work done, to get massage therapy and things like this that were very healing and that would help me connect and be present. Instead of being in my mind and worried and afraid, all these things help me to be present and in the moment. The other thing that I did when I was in Nelson is that I started to connect with women's groups. So before that, I knew that there were women's issues. I started to learn about it in university, and I understood on a basic level as a woman who I was in our society, but I started to work with women's groups when I was there because I needed that support in knowing that there was work being done on violence against women and women's issues. When I came back to Moncton, I'm an only child, like I mentioned, so when I came back to Moncton, one of the main reasons, and my parents had me later in life. They had me, my mother was 38 when she had me, so it's kind of like 2 generations older. So my parents were very, very worried about me, and they kept saying, Barb, come home, because Vancouver or British Columbia is far away. So when I came home, it was very challenging first couple of years, but I intuitively started to do the same kind of things when I was in Moncton. One of the first things that I did is I joined a yoga class, and that night I went to hang out with my friend, and he said, and I didn't really like the yoga class that I took, so I was kind of complaining about it a little bit, and his new girlfriend was standing beside me, and she said, well, get your money back and come with me, I'm gonna go take a belly dance class. So I said, okay. I got my money back and I took this belly dance class with this new girlfriend. And 12 weeks later, so 2 6-week classes later, my teacher put on a show at that time, Mexicali Roses on Main Street was just open, so she performed a belly dance set at Mexicali Roses. And I remember that she was a tall woman, beautiful long brown hair, and she had on this white costume, and it was all kind of like white pearls. And I'm a very tomboy, like I wasn't into dressing up and all that kind of thing. Very, I came of age at the 80s and I was in university at the 90s. I was doing the grunge thing, right? I was at the Fafun Electric in Montreal. Like I was not into that kind of thing. So, and I remember sitting there in Mexicali Rosas and watching her perform, and there was something about the way that she moved. There was something about the way that she was breathing. I don't know what it is, but I remember in my brain, all I could think of, and this was in French, in my brain, it was saying this in French, it was saying, I need to know how to do that. And then the other part of my brain was saying, why do you need to know how to do that? And the first part was saying, I don't know, I needed to do that. I needed to learn how to move that way. And I never stopped taking belly dance classes since. And when I started dancing, I teach now. And when students come to class, a lot of them, it's challenging to move in a new way and to embody new movement. And I can still remember, my first classes, I'm a girl from Moncton, I'm an Acadian. I didn't know how to shimmy, which is making lines with your body, right? I didn't know how to turn gracefully, have beautiful lines. I didn't know how to, like I said, I was dancing at the Fafun Electric. Dancing at the Fafun Electric is like, it's not about being graceful and capturing the essence of the music, right? But I just kept on doing it. And the universe, the way that I felt that it was happening, I felt that because I was trusting my instinct with this, the universe was unfolding. It brought a teacher to me that taught me how to improvise. It brought a teacher to me that taught me to learn choreography. It brought musicians to me that taught me how to dance with live music. It brought dancers, friends. It brought awareness of the concept of embodiment, of being present, of breathing. it brought all these things, and 20 years later, I'm still dancing, I'm still learning. I'm planning on going away at the end of August in Minneapolis to take more workshops. And it's been a journey of presence and empowerment, and it's been a journey of sharing. Because when I teach students, my goal is for them to become present and to be in their bodies and to move and to express and to be creative. And I can see that from the first class that they're there to years later, and they're still developing. Another thing that happened when I moved back to Moncton is I connected with a woman named Nancy Hartling, who runs an agency called Support to Single Parents. And Nancy saw something in me from those first moments, and I am so grateful that she did. And I ended up, when I was ready to start to work on women's issues, when I was ready to take that pain that happened with Leanne and to start working in community, I started volunteering at the agency on a program called the Peer Support and Social Action Program. And not long afterwards, I coordinated that program. I started facilitating classes at the agency for women who have been in unhealthy and abusive relationships. I went to conferences and meetings, and I worked with community partners over the past 10 plus years at the agency, and I've been able to put my passion for creating change in women's lives in work that I do in my community. The third thing that I did when I came back to Moncton is I continued with those healing modalities that I talked about that I did in Nelson. I kept getting body work. I learned healing modalities such as Reiki and Qigong, and I would go to painting classes. I would, just earlier this summer, I did circus school. Even though it's out of my comfort zone, I follow things that help me develop my creativity and to be more present and to express and to breathe. And these three things, belly dancing, working on women's issues, and working on healing and being present, they're scary things. If we're not necessarily encouraged to do things that are out of our comfort zone in our life. And I think that our intuition there are things that happen around us all the time that tell us, you can do this, it's going to give you an experience. And often we don't do it because it's out of our comfort zone, and we're kind of afraid to go there. But what I'm here to tell you is that stepping into those places, even though it's scary, it brings you a life that you would never expect to have. Again, I grew up in Moncton. Who would have thought that I'd be a belly dance teacher in Moncton? Who would have thought that I would work with all these women in my community to help them become aware of their own voice and their own power and their own presence. Life can bring you to so many beautiful, beautiful places, and following your intuition, following your gut, following what your heart tells you, and doing it mindfully is a way to create that in your life. I'm gonna end with one thought. A few years ago, I went to Tatamagouche, Nova Scotia. The agency sent me there to do some training with a woman named Starhawk. So she's a pagan leader from the US, and she works on a lot of social issues. And she said, it doesn't matter where you put your energy in the sense of what social issue that's important to you. For me, it's women's issues. For other people, it's the environment. There's Black Lives Matter in the US right now. There's a whole bunch of places where we feel compelled to put our energy because of experiences that happened in our life. If everybody follows their intuition and they put energy towards what they believe is important, for me it's women's issues, we are all working on creating change. And if each issue is like a pillar holding up a structure that we don't agree with, everybody working on that is important. And sometimes, if I see something happening with the environment that is close to my heart, I'm gonna go put energy there, but then I'm gonna come back to my life, and in my day-to-day life, I'm gonna work with that woman that's in my class. I'm gonna go work with that woman that came to me at the agency. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna get a massage so that I can relax and that I have the energy to go and to do that work the next day. And this is my message to you, is if you take care of yourself, take care of your heart, and follow your intuition, and it's gonna create beauty and joy, and it's gonna create experiences in your life that you never thought that you would have had.